It's only one line.
Good morning.
Hope so.
We're going to try to move quickly today so we can get done before the game starts tomorrow. So let's start off as we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance. For everyone who can rise, please do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this is 270 years since this town started, a long time ago. And that makes it something like the 265th or 6th or something town meeting, because they missed a few along the way. So we're part of a long tradition here. As I always say, I wish we had more people in the audience. We do have I'm glad you came out today. This is an important part of how we govern ourselves. I don't think we have many controversial issues on the warrant today, so we'll move through it quickly. For the people who have been here before, you ultimately set the rules, but we have a kind of a consensus, I think, from the past that we will go through, people will comment on or question warrant articles, and then if there are amendments, we will amend them as necessary, as you see fit, and then they will go on to the ballot. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce who's here today and then make a brief comment about one person who's not joining us today. Bob Donovan Jr. is not here today because his father passed on last week. Bob Donovan Sr., who many of us know, was a wonderful guy and a real fixture in town. He was a selectman. He was the chief of police for a while. He also served as a deputy sheriff in Rockingham. He was a fantastic guy who lived a full life. He was a Marine, and he served our town, our nation, and his community in many, many wonderful ways. So I'd like to just take a second for us all to think about him and his family, his surviving family, and his, of course, Bob Donovan Jr. So today we have with us Lisa Gagne, our Vice Chair, Selectman, Lawrence Foote, James Doggett, Matt Burrell, Nancy Wrigley, our town administrator, Diane Moran, of course, the Secretary for the Board of Selectmen, our town clerk, Mary Jo McCullough, Cheryl Saunders, our assistant clerk. I think everyone in the room knows these people. I'm doing the kind of formal introductions for people who are watching on cable who don't know us. Our supervisors of the checklist, Jolie Lemaire and Barbara White. And I think we have some cable committee members who are taking care of this. I'd like to thank the cable committee. I don't know all of who's on the current set, but I'm just going to name all the people on that committee because they're who's bringing this to the public. Our station manager is James Saucier. We have Marilee Landry, Christine Kosminski, Diane Moran, Sally Woodman, and Robert Cripps on the cable committee, who do an important thing of bringing this out to the public, because I hope people are actually going to watch this either today or when it's rebroadcast. I have heard that it will be rebroadcast tomorrow afternoon starting sometime around 6:30 for people who who just have nothing else to do.
I got nothing going on at 6:30.
And they want to go over and check out some exciting video. A couple things coming up tied to the cable committee. I'm just going to get them out of the way quickly. On the 20th at 7 p.m. here in Town Hall is Candidates Night. People who are running for office will be coming out to talk about themselves. We have decided we will not have the cage fighting and wrestling that we used to have in years past. So we will try to keep all the candidates just in a kind of a talking about themselves, not having one of those sort of debate style things going on. So the only other notes and dates of importance I'd like to touch on before we go through the warrant in overdrive is second session of this meeting occurs on Tuesday, March 12th. I've been assured that it will not snow. And then the school district deliberative session, which is similar to this process, but can be more important because of the dollar amounts involved, is February 6th at 7 p.m. at the high school, I believe in the auditorium. And then something I'm really happy to be involved with is on March 3rd, we're going to have the ribbon cutting and open house at the new fire station. So that starts at noon, ribbon cutting's at 1, I think it runs until about 3, and I'm hoping everyone comes out to see that building. It's done now, and to kind of, join the celebration as we open that up and move forward with a new firehouse. So let's get to the warrant. For 2019, the town warrant states the polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's, of course, on the 12th, after you shovel your driveway out. Oh, never mind, there's not going to be snow. To the inhabitants of the town of Newton, New Hampshire, and the county of Rockingham, in said state, qualified to vote in town affairs, you are hereby notified to meet for the first session of the annual meeting, which shall be for the explanation, discussion, and debate of each warrant article and the transaction of all business other than voting by official ballot, to be held at the Newton Town Hall on Saturday, February 2nd, 2019 at 9 a.m. I'm going to interject. Everybody in this room already knows that because that's why you're here. The second session to be held at the Newton Town Hall in said Newton on Tuesday, the 12th day of March next, at 8 o'clock in the forenoon, to choose all necessary town officers for the ensuing year by official ballot, and to vote on all issues before the town of Newton on the official ballot. The polls to be open at 8 o'clock in the forenoon and to close not earlier than 8 o'clock in the evening. So, that boiled down quite simply says make sure you get to the polling place 8 o'clock in the morning or later before 8 o'clock in the evening on the 12th to vote. First thing we're going to do then is to elect the all necessary town officers. That happens on the 12th. First question before us today, Article 2. Shall the town of Newton raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $3,341,078. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $3,341,534, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Newton or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. The estimated budget increase from the 2018 actual budget to the 2019 proposed budget represents a tax impact of 0.014, which is 1.4 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. Board of Selectmen recommends this article 5-0. I'll hand it to the selectmen to comment or to start the discussion. Mr. Doug.
Make it very simple. You're looking, right at the moment, we managed to get the budget down to $456 below the default. I mean, this is basically a $0.015 increase on the tax rate. For that, you have the increase of cost of goods and services, pay raises that people may have gotten, any increase to a budget. We work hard and we actually count paper clips and rubber bands.
Yes.
I would just like to say to the residents, I think most of us know who the department heads are in town, and the department heads prepare the budgets that roll into this one. And as a taxpayer in this town, if you see a department head, you should really thank them for what they do, because we continually ask them to do more with less every year. And the reason we do that is, unfortunately, because we're trying to succeed at getting the budget passed, and unfortunately people, at least from the town perspective, don't have an interest in seeing a climbing budget for the town. So we continually challenge our department heads to reduce their budgets. So at least this year, please do us all a favor and thank these department heads for what they do, because they're still providing key services to the residents, but they're trying to do it with less money. And I'm not saying that we can stay on this course, but at least for 2019, we need to give them all the credit in the world. We, as the Board of Selectmen, just kind of roll this up, maybe challenge them and vote on it, but it's the department heads who deserve the credit. That's all I have to say.
And I would like to add that if you were to compare the actual budget from last year and the proposed budget for this year, you're talking about a $1,000 increase. That's minimal. We have several departments that have decreased budgets proposed, and a few that have minimal amounts increased. But as a whole, $7,000 with just increase in costs alone, it's not a big increase, so it's well worth going for the operating budget.
I agree with my fellow selectmen. I thank the department heads for doing their best.
Any comments or questions? Article 2 shall go on the ballot as proposed by the selectmen. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,200 to be deposited into the Engineering and Renovation Capital Reserve Fund created in 2015, said funds to come from the unassigned fund balance. This represents the rental fees received, and the note is this article would result in no increase in the amount to be raised by taxes, and the Board of Selectmen does recommend this article 5-0. I'm going to take the moderator's prerogative here and take about a minute to say something I probably should have said before we got started, is that we're going to take a number of warrant articles today which deal with capital reserve funds and moving funds either into them, out of them, and so forth. And really, I think more for the benefit of people who are not familiar with this process, who might be watching at home, I'm going to take a second just to explain how some of that works and why there's a bunch of warrant articles for that. The town has accounts known as reserve funds, which are like analogous in a way to a savings account you might have for a particular project at home. By law, the legislative body, that's us, the voters, can create them and put money into them, and it can close them, and it can take money out of them into the general pool of money the town has. It cannot move money between them. So we, as a group of voters, have to act to put money into these accounts or take money out of those accounts, which is good, because that's our role as taxpayers and voters to kind of manage these funds that the town has. But the result of that, as we'll see when we get further down, is sometimes we as voters have to vote on fairly small transactions, which seem like, why are we even bothering? And some of these we see every year, which are the ways in which money is kind of moved from one activity, like rental fees received, into another kind of account where we'll use it sometime in the future. So that said, I know everyone else in the room is nodding their head like, yeah, I know that. But there are probably people who are not familiar with that process. As we go along, we'll see a bunch of them today, and I'm hoping by kind of explaining the idea, it makes it clearer when we're going through them. So, to the selectmen on this particular one.
So on this particular one, the rental income that we get from 8 Merrimack Road is revenue. It's not appropriated for a specific purpose, so it goes into the unexpended fund. We want to put it into the capital reserve fund that is designated for work on 8 Merrimack Road now or in the future.
Any questions or comments on Article 3?
The only other thing I'll say,
Selectmen are still talking.
that's
Sorry
okay.
about that.
I say this every year, but we always get no votes for this. And I don't understand why we get no votes. So what happens is, if you're saying no, it means we should leave that money there and never use it, essentially. It's money that's available. We're not asking you to, we're not trying to appropriate more money from the taxpayer. The money's already there. We'd just like to use it for the benefit of the town. So hopefully we get a lot of yeses on this one. I don't think it's ever failed, but we do get a lot of no votes.
Right, that's one of the reasons I'm trying to explain how it works, because I think there's some people in town who are not familiar with the process. And we're going to have, I know at the polling place, we're going to have a lot of people who are going to be like, well, what are we doing? Why are these, how's this work? But anyway, so Article 3, any questions from the legislative body. Any comments? Seeing there are no amendments, Article 3 will go on the ballot as proposed. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, as proposed by the cemetery trustees, the sum of $25,000 to pave the horseshoe driveway at the Highland Cemetery, and to authorize the withdrawal of $10,000 from the Cemetery Expendable Trust Fund created in 2016 for this purpose. The balance of $15,000 is to be raised from general taxation. I'm going to note that the 15,000 needs a period, not a comma, on the first page. The article would result in an estimated 3-cent increase per 1,000 of assessed value to be raised by taxes. Board of Selectmen does recommend this article 5-0. Would someone from the cemetery trustees like to speak on that topic?
You want a live person, right?
You bet.
Good morning. Bill Landry, Newton Cemetery Trustees. As you know, a couple of years ago, we paved the driveway at Willow Grove. And we did that with funds from our trust funds. So it didn't cost the town 1 single cent for us to do that. With respect to Highland Cemetery, we have some real issues over there. We had for several years with the driveway. The driveway over there is about 2.5 times the length of what Willow Grove is. But come spring, we have issues with flooding, mud piles, ruts, and so forth from people driving around the back. So what we have done in past years, and we had to do it a few weeks ago because of the weather in December that was warm and rainy, we put up barriers. And as has happened in the past, people came in, drove around the barriers into the mud, made the ruts worse, or in some cases where they didn't want to get their car dirty, they drove up over graves, other people's graves, to get to their graves. So we are at a point now that not only is the back in bad shape, but even the 2 entry roads coming in, east and west, are showing ruts and so forth. So we're at a point now where almost every year we will have to bring in additional gravel, have it compacted, and we're talking $1,000 or more a year to do this. As you mentioned, it's only 3 cents per $1,000 for this. $15,000 sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But when you look at the actual tax impact on your tax bill, it's actually minimal. If you have a home assessed, and for those of you here who have the tax impact sheets, you will see that if you have a home assessed at $260,000, which is almost the average of the assessments in Newton, you're going to pay $8. If your home is assessed at $280,000, you're going to pay about $8. If you're up there in the $300,000 category, you're going to pay $9. So $15,000 is a lot of money, but we homeowners will take a hit of $8 or $9 one time, this year only. At the end of 2019, that goes away. It comes out of the tax bill. So for $9, we will improve the cemetery immensely. We'll improve the appearance, we'll improve the operation of it, and we also, to a degree, will improve the respect and dignity for the men, women, and children and veterans who are buried over there. So this is really important to us. If we don't get this passed, we will be struggling each year, spending money, bad money after good, to try to keep the cemetery operational. Another option we have is to stop winter burials. We talked to the New Hampshire Cemetery Association just to get some stats on how many cemeteries do not bury during the winter. And the survey they did, 55% of the cemeteries no longer allow winter burials. And that's typically January and February. They shut the cemetery down. We don't really want to do that because we did a little more investigation and found that with a cremation, it's not an issue. You wait until the spring and everything is fine. But if you're not going to be cremating the remains, you're going to have to find a way to keep that body refrigerated through that period. And in looking into that type of a situation, you could pay $35 to $100 a day. So that tacks on another $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to an already high cost of burial. So we really want to stay away from that. We don't want to do that. So the way to avoid all these issues for us and improve everything about the cemetery is to spend the $8 or $9 one time this year and pass this.
Thank you.
Any questions? No?
Questions or comments regarding Article 4? Yes, sir.
I'd just like to say, I had a no marked next to my warrant, and I just changed it to yes. And I'll tell you why, and I think this might be important for a lot of these warrants. I see 3-cent increases, 15-cent increases, et cetera, and I'm thinking, yeah, it's little, but year by year, endlessly, our taxes go up. But by it being explained that it was for 1 year only, I'm happy to do that. And maybe there's other warrants that I don't understand here that might be for 1 year only. And it would be good to know in the future. And I want to thank you, Lisa. I was late, but I read your voters of the taxpayers in the website. I went, oh, thank you. because
You're
I had
welcome.
forgotten about this.
Thank you. That's a good point. I'll just reiterate that as we go through, we may want to comment whether these are one-time expenditures or continuing. And I'll note, because I looked at one of them, that the tax impact is not necessarily an increase if we already had it last year. In other words, in some cases, there's things on here where we show the tax impact because it's an individual warrant article, but it's not like your taxes are going to step up this year by that amount because you've been paying that for the last 20 years, right? Because people have voted it yes, 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 yes for the past 20 years. So what you're seeing is what you paid every year already, right? So that's another way that people may not understand how the stuff, composites together. Anyway, let's keep going.
Good point.
And I'll mention one when we get to that, because I saw one in there and I said, yeah, it's every year it's like that. Okay, Article 5.
Do we vote?
We have no amendments,
Oh, okay.
so it just goes on
Okay,
without amendment.
okay.
Article 5, to see if the town will vote, as proposed by the Board of Selectmen and the Transfer Station Manager, to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to purchase a tractor and equipment for the purpose of the daily operations of the transfer station, with $50,000 to come from the transfer station / recycling special revenue fund created in 2003 for this purpose. This article would result in no increase in the amount to be raised by taxes. Board of Selectmen does recommend this Article 5 to 0. Would the Selectmen like to start off on that, or do we have a representative from the transfer station?
I think
We
Pete's
have a
here.
representative.
Pete, you want to talk on that one?
The current machine we have now is 15 years old. It's got a lot of abuse. We do a lot of work that it just can't handle anymore. The machine I'm hoping to get, we'd be able to do our own plowing, crush down cans, get more tonnage into our dumpsters, save a little bit of money on hauling costs. And I think it's just going to be a good thing for the town to save a little bit of money down there. And,
I'd like to add that the repair costs for the current tractor, which we managed to acquire at no cost to the town about 15 years ago, those repair costs are increasing every year as it ages and gets overused. We need a more powerful tractor.
The only other thing I would add is I'm a little concerned there might be sticker shock for people when they decide to vote on this. What you should understand is, I think we've talked about it already, is this money already exists in our bank account. We're asking to take the money out of one account and put it in a new account so that we can use it for this purpose. So we're not asking people to reach into their pockets and give us more money for this benefit. So to me, it's a It's a need to have, it's not a nice to have. This is going to save us money in the long run. As Pete said, we'll be able to compress a little better in those, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, we get charged the same amount for that container, whether it's full or half full. So what Pete would do with his guys is they just keep compressing that to get the best use of it before we send it back. So it's going to save the residents money to do this. And, you know, back to sticker shock, a lot of people might see this and say, oh my God, $50,000 for a tractor. But this is almost like a budget, right? So it's not necessarily a tractor is going to cost $50,000, but we're going to buy a tractor and we have money in there to maintain the tractor and stuff. So I hope people vote in favor of this, because in the long run, it's an investment that's going to help us. So thanks.
I'm gonna ask a question, which is, will we be selling the old one, or are we gonna keep it?
I don't know if you can even get anything for it.
For parts,
Right
maybe?
at the moment,
Yeah, yeah.
Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, right at the moment, I believe the present tractor needs, it's like $4,200 worth of repairs? Or is it?
The last repair, yes, was about 4,200, 4,300.
So, I'm not 100% certain that somebody wants to buy a vehicle that they suddenly have to put that much kind of money.
Oh, it'll sell. Old tractors sell.
Of course, the good news is if we have to dump the tractor, it doesn't have to move very far. It can just kind of stay at the dump.
But yeah, I was just going to say, luckily, scrap metal pile's right there.
Right.
No, I mean, I'm asking that seriously, because if
Yeah.
we have surplus goods like that, we have to decide, do we want to keep them and use them?
Yeah.
Or do we want to sell them? Because, and I'm not trying to get into the actual value of that tractor, but that tractor's worth money.
Yeah, and
They all are.
Yeah,
You know.
a little bit of money, yeah.
we cannot make decisions until something occurs, so we can't decide to sell something until, obviously, if we get another one, then we can make a decision, discuss. But I'll tell you that my opinion would be, because it's just money after money after money every year, I don't want to keep it. That's why I voted for the new tractor. I want to get rid of it.
Right.
And by the way, if I could totally sign Pete up for something he probably doesn't know about, is all of us, most of us in town go to the transfer station. So the next time you're at the transfer station, if you want to hear more about this, you know, Pete's at the shack most of the time, just ask him and he'll show you the old tractor. He'll show you what they do, so you can get a little more firsthand information, so you're educated when you vote. So,
That's a good idea.
yeah.
Yes, Diane.
Diane Moore. I'm just curious, can we actually purchase some kind of a tractor for $50,000?
Yes, there was some research done prior to the article to ensure that there were tractors out there that were up to or close to that amount that would serve our purpose.
Actually, if I might restate what Mrs. Gagnon said, first we decided what we needed. We went out and looked, and this is the price range that what we need can be found in. We didn't go looking for something in the $50,000 range and decide, ooh, that might work.
That's kind of what I meant. We
Yeah.
did the research, found the tractor we needed, found that this was the cost. So the money will cover the purchase of the tractor. The other thing that we didn't mention is the fund that this is coming out of is actually funded by the fees collected at the transfer station. So we're using the money we collect at the transfer station to pay for an item needed at the transfer station. It just makes sense. That's what that money's for.
Annie Collier, quick question. What is the total of that reserve fund balance?
It's approximately 200,000 in there right now.
Okay, so about 200,000, we're using about a quarter of it.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Jamie Fitzpatrick from Newton. Just a quick question. If due to your purchasing acumen, you get it for $40,000 rather than $50,000, does the 10 revert back into the?
It doesn't come out at all.
Doesn't
We
come out at all.
only take out the
Full
actual
amount.
amount used to purchase the vehicle.
Thank you.
So if it's 40,000, we only take 40 out.
Any other questions Proposed amendments? Seeing none, Article 5 goes on the ballot as written. Article 6, to see if the town will vote as proposed by the Board of Selectmen to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 for the purpose of holding a hazardous waste day for Newton residents only, with $25,000 to come from the Transfer Station Recycling Special Revenue Fund created in 2003 for this purpose. This article would result in no increase in the amount to be raised by taxes. Board of Selectmen does recommend this article 5-0. Pete, do you want to talk to this, or you want the selectmen to address it?
Yeah, the hazardous waste day, it's a great opportunity for the residents to bring in their paints, chemicals, anything that they can't get rid of. And every year we have it. It's a great event. Goes for about 3 hours, and that 3 hours we're hopping. I think it's a great thing for the town.
I'd like to clarify first that it's been every other year that we've done this. The alternating years used to be the bulk item vouchers, which the voters voted last year to do every year. So even though we are doing those vouchers every year, we did not want to stop offering the hazardous waste day on the alternating years. And again, the funds to cover the expense of this hazardous waste day is coming out of that transfer station revenue fund from the fees for this purpose. And only the amount needed, depending on how much waste is removed, will actually be withdrawn from that account.
Yes, sir.
Will this day be on a weekend?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it usually is.
It's usually a Saturday morning.
Any other questions or comments regarding Article 6? Seeing none, Article 6 goes on the ballot as proposed.
Someone's home saying people need to step closer, they can't.
Ah, okay. We're getting feedback from some of our viewers at home that the mic in front here is a little hard to hear, so stand as close as you can to that mic and speak boldly so they can hear you. And then we'll try to make sure they can follow along with us, because it's great that people are watching it. So, Article 7 is the one that lists all of the community services. I'm going to read them in a moment. But before I do that, this is an article that, again, the taxpayers vote on every year, which is good, because it allows the residents the opportunity to vote on these particular things that the town spends money on in support of the town. But notice it says it's an increase, but I believe that increase is not really the increase, right? That's the cost, if I'm correct. I'm looking at the selectmen to make sure I'm correct. That's the cost of that article, because remember, it's a separately voted article by the voters, right? So it's a warrant article. So it has a direct contribution, and that has to be on the ballot like it is. But remember, we voted yes for this last year. So it's not like if you looked at your tax bill this year, it's going to go up from last year because of this. It's not going to. You already paid for it last year in your bill. So I just want people to understand that they're not seeing a step up every year because they vote yes for this. They're only seeing the cost of it, which may well be the same as the cost was last year.
And I think that's a good way of looking at it, because unfortunately, I think law dictates how we write that out.
Correct, correct.
So we really can't say, it is an increase to the overall tax bill, right? But it's not, like you said, it's not, oh, last year you paid this amount and you're...
Right, and correctly, and just to make my own idea clear, if the voters said, no, we're not going to do this year, then your tax bill would be decreased from what you paid last year by the 6 cents, right? Because everybody voted yes for it last year. But it's just something that people have been voting yes for probably 25 years at least. So it is a separate warrant article. The wording is that it's an increase, but that's an increase over what that tax bill would be if you didn't vote for it. Not an increase over last year's tax bill, if that makes sense. Okay, so Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $32,189 for the following community services. Area Home Care and Family Services, $3,800. Child Advocacy Center, $2,000. Drugs Are Dangerous, $2,500. Family Mediation, $5,947. Haven, $3,050. Lamprey Healthcare, $1,600. New Hampshire SPCA, $750. Rockingham County Community Action, $5,000. Rockingham Nutrition Meals on Wheels, $2,842. The Vic Geary Center, $2,700. And Waypoint, formerly known as Child and Family Services, $2,000, which together total up to $32,189. This article would result in an estimated 6-cent increase per 1,000 of assessed value to be raised by taxes. Board of Selectmen does recommend this article 5-0. The Selectmen?
I'd like to say these are all valuable resources, and even if you don't use it now, you might use it in 2 or 3 years from now. I don't know if the police chief wants to talk to any about on some of the issues that his department uses.
Mike Hewitt, Police Chief. Going through this, and I did this last year as well, we use a lot of these organizations throughout the town. I'm not going to take each one of them and break them down. And like Selectman Foote said, we may not use these now. Someone in town may not use them. But if you look at Haven, I don't want to see anyone using Haven because something bad has happened if we're using Haven. Family Mediation, they're one of the higher ones, so $5,947. Family Mediation, what we use them for is a diversion program, and the diversion is for kids in town. We've got a kid in town that is having, it could be a multitude of different issues. Instead of putting them through the court system and making them a statistic, we give the kids an opportunity to better themselves and get out of the situation they're in. Family Mediation then goes into some of these other ones. Drugs Are Dangerous, and I'm not going to say we don't have overdoses in town. We certainly do. We certainly have kids in town that need services. We have adults in town that need services. Yes, it is a lot of money, $32,189. But if we broke it down for the amount of services that we use just through the police department for these, I think we're paying probably pennies per each time that we use them. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to add some clarification here. These amounts, again, are the cap amounts that are used. So for the year, whatever services we actually utilize is what we will actually pay for. So if we have a good year and don't need as many services, we will not spend the whole $32,000. The other thing that I would like to say is that these services are required by the town to offer and provide for its residents. We don't have a choice. We have to provide it. The only question is who is doing the providing and where the money is coming from. And that's what this warrant article is for.
So, in other words, it will come from somewhere. If it fails on the warrant, we're going to have to dig into another department's budget to pay for it.
Other questions, comments, or amendments? Seeing there are none, Article 7 will go on the ballot as proposed. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, as proposed by the Recreation Commission, the sum of $4,500 for recreational programs and trips for Newton senior citizens. This article would result in an estimated 1 cent increase per $1,000 of assessed value to be raised by taxes. Board of Selectmen does recommend this article, 5-0. Would the Selectmen like to speak to this, or do we have a representative from the Recreation Commission? Who would like to talk to
So
this?
I think it's me. So basically, this is an article we have every year. It's usually very successful. I think this is an important program. These events usually sell out. I think it's great camaraderie in our community for seniors who may not get out if not for this program. So I hope it succeeds again this year. It ticked up a little bit in cost because things get more expensive. But very successful program. Hopefully people vote in favor of this.
And the actual tax increase to next year's bill isn't even going to be that 1 cent per, because we have approved it in the past, which means we're already paying the majority of that 1 cent per thousand.
Mr. Dodd.
That was going to be my comment. I'm keeping a running total here. So far, we're at 4.4 cent increase to the tax rate. This probably brings it to 4.5. Right.
Any comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Jamie Fitzpatrick from Newton. I just want to make a comment in support of this. I've seen some things recently on some social media reference from the school side of it, that somehow the seniors aren't paying their way, as it were. And seniors put a lot of money in taxes into different applications and don't use all these services that we used to do as a community repayment for all that they do contribute without using some of the services, particularly in the area of the school, which is where most of the money is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
I'm always loud.
By the way, I love the Mike Vrabel shirt. I just have to say that. That's great.
Thank you. I just wanted to get a couple of examples where the senior citizens go on a program over the last couple of years. Where have they been taken to?
So the, just a couple, and I'm sure somebody will speak up if I don't mention correctly, but they did the Mount Washington, the boat, and they've also done the railroad. What was
Cog
that?
Railroad.
The Cog Railroad. We also do a luncheon, usually around Christmas time at the Roma. And am I forgetting anything? I think usually it's 2 events per year, I believe. So if we, well, the senior cookout is usually paid for out of rec budget for Old Home Day. So that would be separate from this. But the, with what we found out, like for instance this year with the Roma, is the Roma sold out like, you know, like it was a Beatles concert or something.
Yeah.
It sold out in 25 minutes, so there were people on a waiting list. So the reason we tick this up a little bit is what we'd like to do is make sure everybody who wants to go can go. So.
Any other questions or comments on Article 8? Seeing there are no amendments, Article 8 will go on the ballot as proposed. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, as proposed by the Recreation Commission, the sum of $12,000 to recruit, train, and hire seasonal part-time lifeguards to oversee the safety of all swimmers at the town beach. This article would result in an estimated 2-cent increase per $1,000 of assessed value to be raised by taxes. Board of Selectmen does recommend this article 5-0.
So, so some,
Yeah.
right. So some
The beach.
background on this. A bunch of residents had asked for this before. We put this on the warrant last year and it did pass successfully. But, you know, we can't do a lot about it until it passes. What we found out was there's a huge shortage of lifeguards in the New England area, especially in New Hampshire. So we never were able to hire any lifeguards last year because no one applied for the job. So that 12,000 from last year gets reallocated, if anybody's wondering where that money went. So it reallocated through the general fund to the taxpayers. So it's not like we had that money sitting around. We couldn't use it. We couldn't, because of the specificity of what it's spent for and it's for payroll, we couldn't, it's not like we could save that and use it again the following year. So the plan is this year is to actually go to probably the school, Sanborn, and recruit kids that are interested in doing this, and we would have enough money in this warrant to send them to the Red Cross or somebody like that, get them certified, trained. Spoke to the fire chief. You know, the fire chief would also have his input, and we could hire, hopefully, you know, background checks and everything. We hire our own lifeguards, and we would have them. People often wonder about this, and you know, it's like, what, people aren't watching their kids? What I'm hearing from residents is that residents are going there and watching their own kids. They don't want to watch somebody else's kids. So what happens is there's always those kids that are there that seem to be unwatched. So the lifeguards give a little peace of mind to the residents that are there watching their own kids. If people vote no for this, they vote no for this, is the way I look at it. It's the ultimate, like I say, public opinion poll. Do you want this? A lot of residents do. Some never use the beach. They don't want this. So vote the way you want us to do this. If you're in favor of it, then I say vote for it, and we'll get it done this year. If not, then that's fine too. So that's it.
Hi, Annie Collier. Number of years ago, I was on recreation, and we used to have lifeguards, and then the insurance requirements changed to require to have 2 at a time with cross-looking. Is that still the case, or is the insurance requirement different?
Insurance requirement is different. So one of the reasons it took so long last year was because new insurance provider, and we had to review contracts and stuff like that. So we are now well educated in that. So I haven't seen anything. Nancy can probably answer this. I don't think Primex says anything about 2 at a time.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so that
That helps.
reduces the cost
Yeah.
in half.
Yeah. Now, really, if you ask me, and there's enough money in the warrant article, I would like to have 2 at a time, but it's not going to be a deal breaker.
And what kind of hours are you thinking about having lifeguards for?
Kind of not there yet. It's probably going to be prime hours, start kind of early on the weekends and be there most of the day.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments on Article 9? Seeing there are none and no amendments, Article 9 will go on the ballot as presented. Article 10, and now we're going to go through a slew of reserve fund transactions, so we're going to move these, I imagine, pretty quickly. Article 10, to see if the town of Newton will vote to dissolve the capital reserve fund established in 2005, known as the Safety Complex Building Fund. Said funds in the amount of $4,585.42 plus accumulated interest to date of withdrawal shall lapse to the town's general fund. Article would result in no increase in the amount to be raised by taxes. Board of Selectmen recommends this article 5-0. The Selectmen? Mr. Doggett.
This is one of those capital reserve funds that we were talking about that was created, money was put into it, some money was spent, there's money left over. Either it sits there and does nothing forever, or it comes out of the general fund, and then the next article will put it into another fund.
This capital reserve fund, when it was created, was tied to a specific safety complex building plan that was never utilized. However, because of the way it was written, we either take it out of here or it will sit there in limbo forever. There's nothing that it can be used on. I'm sure the trustees of the trust fund would love us to eliminate it because it has to be maintained as an account.
Any questions or comments?
Actually, I do have one more comment in general. These are bank accounts, and as you know, banks have fees. So to maintain accounts or dormant accounts costs money. We don't want to do that. That's another reason for this cleanup of accounts that we're doing this year.
Any questions or comments? Seeing there are none, Article 10 will go on the ballot as presented. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $4,585 to be deposited into the engineering and renovation of land and buildings at 8 Merrimack Road Capital Reserve Fund, created in 2015. This sum to come from unassigned fund balance, no amount to be raised from taxation. If warrant Article 10 does not pass, this article will be null and void. This article would result in no increase in the amount to be raised by taxes. The Board of Selectmen does recommend this article 5-0. And before I hand it over to the board, this is a perfect example of why, what we're really trying to do here with these articles. So when people come to vote them, they understand. By law, we cannot have a warrant article that just says, close and take the money out of the capital reserve fund and move it over to the engineering, the other fund that's for the real building, right? The engineering and renovation for 8 Merrimack Road Capital Reserve Fund. We have to go through in two separate warrant articles, one to close it and then the other one to move it. So it's a move in 2 steps, which is why the second one is null and void if the first one doesn't pass. So unfortunately for the voters, they got to chug through a lot of these, but there's nothing we can do about it because that's how the New Hampshire state law is structured. It's like-
I have one comment here. You may notice that the amounts are slightly different. The amount being withdrawn is 458542 plus accumulated interest when at time of withdrawal, whereas the amount to be deposited into the engineering is 4585 no cents. That's because you need to have an exact amount for a warrant article, and we're not going to know what that accumulated interest is, if any. So we rounded it off to the dollar. That's the amount that'll go into it. Those few cents will go into that unexpended fund.
And the unexpended fund balance is used to offset taxes.
Any comments or discussion? Seeing none, Article 11 will go on the ballot as presented. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to dissolve the Capital Reserve Fund established in 1997, known as the Town Hall Sprinkler Fund. Said funds in the amount of $1,541.91 plus accumulated interest to date of withdrawal shall lapse to the town's general fund. This article would result in no increase in the amount to be raised by taxes. Board of Selectmen does recommend this article 5-0. And I'm just going to note that maybe if we don't do that, we could buy a lot of buckets and line them up outside of the town
geez.
hall. There's a tremendous history. If you've been in town for a while, the sprinkler fund has we could write a book about it. But anyway, to the selectmen.
This is just similar to the previous articles. Again, there isn't enough money to do anything for sprinklers. People have not wanted it. They voted against it year after year after year. So let's close the account out.
Mr. Doggett.
Just so people know, if you look up, there appear to be sprinklers up there. Please notice those are purely for your betterment and for your enjoyment because they are not attached to anything.
They make me feel better.
Yeah, that's,
It's an illusion.
False sense
Yeah.
of security.
while there is something physically up there, they are not technically sprinklers.
Right.
Yeah, for the benefit of people who have not been in town for a long time, there was a multi-stage process of attempting to get sprinkler coverage in town hall, which would be a good idea. But money was raised, parts of the job were done, and then the voters decided, well, in fact, they didn't want to sort of finish the job. So yes, we actually have a set of sprinklers that aren't connected to anything. And maybe someday the voters will say, you know, we ought to hook them up to something. But in the meantime, that was why my joke about the buckets, because if we had a bunch of buckets, at least we could set up the old school bucket brigade, like the town used to use back in the 1800s, and do our best. But barring that, and hopefully we will never need the sprinklers. But anyway, so we've got $1,500 left over, so that fund needs to get closed. Any further discussion on Article 12? Seeing there is none, Article 12 goes on the ballot as presented. 13, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,542 to be deposited into the town buildings Capital Reserve Fund for the purpose of maintenance, repairs, and construction created in 2006. This sum is to come from unassigned fund balance, no amount to be raised from taxation. If warrant Article 12 does not pass, this article will be null and void. This article would result in no increase in the amount to be raised by taxes. Board of Selectmen does recommend this article 5-0. I think we know what the story is on this one. Do the Selectmen want to say anything?
I do want to say one thing. Again, you can see the amounts are slightly different. We rounded up this time instead of rounding down. And you can also see that the two capital reserve accounts are related. Sprinkler, town hall sprinkler, town building funds. So it's not like we're moving them for a different purpose. We're just moving them into an account where we can actually use it for similar purpose.
Yes.
Could you please tell approximately what the balance is at the town capital reserve fund?
I can't see her, but I know she's over there.
Flipping.
Hold on.
Which one, Annie, are you interested?
The
Town Buildings Capital Reserve
Fund.
Okay, hold on, let me find it. Town Buildings has $20,744.13.
Seems to me it needs a little more money in there.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
But one thing at a time.
Any other questions or comments on Article 13? Seeing there are none, Article 13 will go on the ballot as presented. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to dissolve the Capital Reserve Fund established in 2013, known as Emergency Operating Center for Emergency Operations Equipment, Office Supplies, and Payroll. Said funds in the amount of $1 shall lapse to the town's general fund. This article would result in no increase in the amount to be raised by taxes. Board of Selectmen does recommend this article 5-0.
Again, this is just an account that we opened, it didn't go anywhere, so we just need to close it.
I'm only going to, Selectman Foote, I'm only going to ask, and this is a kind of typo question, does the word fund appear after Emergency Operating Center?
I'm going to make an amendment to this article because it is in the Capital Reserve Fund. It is an expendable trust fund,
Okay.
so I'd like to make that as a motion.
I'll second that.
Second.
Just as I'll say it as a point of order, good catch, Ms. Wrigley. We occasionally fix stuff on the fly, so we're going to kind of take an abbreviated form. Normally, it would be, there would be a motion, a second, then there would be discussion on the amendment. I'm going to let the discussion on the amendment kind of go informally between the people involved because looks like we're just making a wording fix. I mean, it's almost like a typo fix. But so the purpose of this amendment is just to correct the wording. We're not trying to change the meaning in the article. We're just trying to fix it because it looks like there's a drafting error. So the amendment,
DRA has a habit of disallowing any warrant articles that are not accurate. So
Right.
we need the correction.
yeah, we'll get clipped anyway by the state. But okay, so let me just get it correct, Nancy. To see if the town will vote to dissolve it's an expendable trust fund?
Expendable trust fund.
Yeah, it's expendable trust fund as opposed to capital reserve.
Correct.
And is it also known as the Emergency Operating Center Fund?
Um,
What's it technically called?
It's one of those long names that keeps getting condensed because it won't fit in the book.
Okay, but
You can still
The
keep it.
we
purpose,
just say Emergency Operating Center.
no, the purpose was for the Emergency Operating Center to buy supplies, pay payroll, things
Okay.
when they were working.
Yeah, I'm only trying to make sure that,
It's not a fund. Expendable Trust Fund is the name of the account. And it was for the purpose of running the EOC after a storm.
right, all I'm trying to do is make sure we have the right wording where it says Emergency Operating Centers. That is the correct
That's
phrase?
the correct,
Perfect, okay.
yes.
So the amendment, to make it clear, would be to replace the words capital reserve with the words expendable trust. So it would now read, to see if the town will vote to dissolve the expendable trust fund established in 2013, known as Emergency Operating Center, and then the rest is the same. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passed unanimously. Any further discussion on the article as amended? Seeing there is none, Article 14 will go on the ballot as amended.
Oh, I just wanted to say one thing. You'll notice there isn't a following article to move that dollar into another fund.
So
I
that'll
think
be
your board of-
evenly distributed amongst the residents.
Yeah, we'll all get it back on our taxes.
Right,
It'll be an offsetting thing. Okay, so now we're down to the final article here, and I know there's probably going to be a stampede out the door, but this is probably one of the more interesting ones on here, so let's, kind of focus on this. Article 15, to see if the town will vote, as proposed by the fire chief, to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be placed in the existing capital reserve fund known as the Fire Apparatus and Equipment Refurbishment Fund, voted in 2011. This article would result in an estimated 10-cent increase per $1,000 of assessed value to be raised by taxes. I'll note that that's a one-time for this year because it corresponds to that appropriation. Board of Selectmen does recommend this article 5-0. Chief, would you like to address that?
Good morning, John Alpadino, Fire Chief. As the moderator has already stated, this was an article that was put in 2011. I believe 2015, 2016, and 2017, the fire department did not recommend this article because in 15, we went for the new tanker, which basically depleted. This article, 16 and 17, we went for the new station, and the fire department's feeling was we shouldn't have a new station in this article on the warrant. This article was on the warrant last year to start building up the capital reserve fund for the older apparatus to start replacing.
Thank you. Mr. Dyer.
Oh, I should remind people that at the rate of putting $50,000 per year in there, it would take between 5 and 6 years in order to generate a large enough capital reserve to replace a vehicle in the future. Now that we have a building that we can put stock vehicles into. But still, at $50,000 a year, when many fire apparatus are in the $250,000 to $350,000 range, you know.
However, this article is just for this 1 year.
Yes.
This is not a recurring 50,000 every year. We would have to come before the voters each year to request an additional sum of money. So this is one time, $50,000, but it is an attempt to start saving again for the next hit when it comes to fire apparatus, rather than the big hit we had with the tanker a few years ago.
Yes.
I believe at the public hearing, Annie asked the question, how much money was in there, and I completely forgot. I was looking at the old town report. I forgot that we did vote on it in 2018, so currently we have $52,600 in there. Yep.
52,600. So this would be adding to that.
Which would bring it up to 102,000. Still not enough to get an apparatus, but it'll get us.
We're getting closer.
Any other questions or discussions on Article 15? Mr. Dyer.
Oh, the other discussion is, this would cost the average household in the town of Newton approximately $30 on their tax bill.
Correct, on a $300,000 house.
Right. And so far, prior to this, in new tax monies, we're looking at 4.5 cents. Please remember that next Wednesday when you go to the school deliberative session. 4.5 cents, if this is passed, it would be a 14.5 cent increase in the tax rate.
Thank you. Other questions or discussion on Article 15? Seeing there are none, Article 15 will go on the ballot as presented. We now have the opportunity, the voters have the opportunity, the participants in the meeting, to bring up any other topics. They can't be binding, they won't be on the warrant, but if there's another topic that we should discuss as town business before we recess the meeting until the second session, this will be the time to do it. I'm going to take the moderator's prerogative and put a topic on the table that I think we can dispatch quickly. Who's going to win the game on Sunday afternoon?
Oh, there's no question.
So, we could kind of take a vote here. Will it be the Pats or those other guys? So, my only thoughts would maybe we have the sense of the town that we hope the Patriots are successful and that there are no injuries in the game on either side, and that the refs do their job correctly, and we have a great game.
How cool is it that it seems every year at the deliberative, we're wishing the Patriots good luck in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I can't beat that.
And
I
this
could
year,
do
the
this
moderator has
forever.
no conflict.
I have none whatsoever. I mean, I have none whatsoever. Although I have to admit, and this I must confess in all fairness and openness, that I was not a Patriots fan until later in my life. Because, see, I grew up outside of Philadelphia in a family of rabid football fans. And so there was another team that we, at the time, kind of had an interest in. But once I moved north, things shifted. So anyway, yes, I'm getting the clerk's giving me the eye. So any other topics of importance other than the sense of the town that we have best wishes towards the Patriots and all the players in the game? Anything else? Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like to thank you. I know Newton is called a bedroom community. I understand that. I'm a perfect example of that. I work at Hanscom Air Force Base, and so I can't make it during the week. And so having this on Saturday, I really appreciate you doing that. And just one last thing, I want to say to this gentleman here who's wearing a Saints jacket, you were robbed. We should be playing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, that said, shall we vote to recess our meeting until the beginning of the second session? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank heavens there's no one opposed. All right. The ayes have it. See you all on Election Day. Thank you very much.
Thank